everyone, and welcome back to another episode of We're Watching Star Trek, the original series. As always, I am Brandon, and I'm here with Paul.
Yo, what's up, people? Paul here. New mic, so hopefully my voice sounds a little bit better or worse. New setup, we're trying to figure things out, but eventually we're going to figure out. Let's get to it.
Hopefully not worse, but he should sound the same as always because he is Dan.
Guten Tag, everybody.
Wow, okay, never mind, we're not even going to acknowledge that.
Oh, yeah.
Just ignore the German, why don't you?
Yep. We're going to acknowledge that we did watch, I guess. We are not currently watching. Well, Paul's currently watching. But we watched season 1, episode 26, called Errand of Mercy. And the original air date for this was March 22nd, 1967. I think the last episode aired on like the 7th, so they had like a 2-week break for some reason. I don't know, does anything even happen in March that they would take a big break like that?
March Madness,
St. Patrick's
probably.
Day, or who knows?
They were all just too fucking loaded to record to do an episode. Yeah. The big thing for this episode for me is English subtitles are back. So I thank God, because some of these names, there's no fucking way I would have been able to.
Oh, I should have busted out the German last week then for you.
Yeah, yep. You had, 3 episodes and you done fucked up. Yeah, we're just going to get right into it. And this episode opens with the Enterprise flying through space like it always does. And on the bridge, Spock is handing Kirk a coded message. So Kirk, it's just like a little disc. And Kirk puts that message in a device, and he tells Spock that they had both guessed right and that the negotiations with the Klingon Empire are about to break down, and Starfleet Command anticipates a surprise attack. And immediately I was like, why the fuck did he just read off this coded message in front of everybody? Like, wasn't it coded for a reason? I guess, like, security not really a big thing with him.
Kirk has no secrets with his main crew.
Yeah, and the other people that they switch out on the bridge like 50 times an episode.
Well, that's true, because Janice still isn't back.
Yeah, she's not there. And who was the guy in like the tactical seat next to Sulu?
A new flight crewman.
Oh, yeah. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, just another dude we've never seen before. But they are they're going to Organia, I think, Organia maybe, and they're going to do whatever they have to do to prevent the Klingons from using it as a base. So Spock agrees that Organia would be a tactical advantage for either side, and he explains that the planet is inhabited by peaceful, friendly humanoids who live on a primitive level. And Kirk compares them to Armenia and Belgium, and Spock's like, fucking where? And Kirk's just like, oh, it's these places that, weak, innocent people all seem to be located on natural invasion routes. So, like, anytime, anything crazy's happen, these people like this that have nothing to do with anything are always the ones getting screwed.
One thing I thought was really smart was they kind of showed history with the Klingons without making them new.
Yeah.
So, like, we kind of got thrown into the middle of the situation, and then we're learning about things, that way, instead of them having to exactly explain to us exactly what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's always nice that we don't have to sit through like 15 minutes of. I mean, they did it well in the Romulan thing, where they were just basically like, here's somebody you've never heard of, and here's why we don't like them, and like that works really well instead of just making us sit through a whole fucking backstory for like half an episode. So Sulu, he informs Kirk that the automatic deflector screen has just turned on and that there's a body approaching them. And they're just kind of like, oh, that's really interesting. And then they get hit with like an explosion. They get hit by something, and they're all thrown around the bridge. We get a shot from like outside the Enterprise of a ship that's just firing at the Enterprise, which was really cool. And they're just in there, shaking around, throwing themselves around the bridge. It's really funny though, because there's Sulu's just like, hey, our shields are up for some reason and something's coming at us, but we don't really know what's going on. Like, I think you can probably put that together.
They were like, oh, our defense screens popped up for no reason. I was like, for no reason? But then again, maybe that happens when asteroids happen too. Maybe that happens more often. Like, maybe
that could be.
If they're running, I'm assuming there's asteroids out there and there'll be like small ones and the shields just come up so to deflect them. So maybe it's a normal thing for that to happen.
Right.
Well, when the Enterprise gets hit, Sulu basically flies on top of the control board, which don't you think that would like fuck up a bunch of shit?
Yeah, he's just hitting a bunch of buttons.
Sorry, we're now in Warp Drive 5.
And the other thing is, like, where the fuck has this feature been before? Because they've been fired on before, and they've run into shit, and they've never had an automatic defensive screen.
Okay, sir. First of all, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. See, he's about to bring up the past. Like, oh, remember a long time ago that happened?
No, I know how this show works. They literally just make it up as they go along. Make it up as
they go along, so they don't be thinking ahead. That's a really cool feature.
It would have come in handy before, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, the Enterprise got an update. Now it can do that.
Yeah, they had to like go plug in like a big USB cord to the back of it and do like a quick firmware update for the ship. They had to like restart, and they were all pissed because they were in the middle of using it. But anyway, Kirk orders the crew to lock their phasers and return fire, and then they get hit a few more times, and they fire off some shots, and they eventually do destroy the enemy ship. And Spock reports that their damage is minor and that their casualties are light. And I'm like, I need a number, Spock. Like, I'm trying to fucking track casualties here, and I can't do that when you just say casualties are light.
Okay.
So now we have no clue
I wrote
how
that
many
down
died.
for an issue. I had a real issue with that comment, by the way. Because I'm like, casualty of light. Does that mean there's not much damage? Not many people have died, or what? Because he said it like it wasn't a big deal. So I thought casualties are light. Like, does that mean damage is minimal? Like I'm thinking maybe it's just the way he talks. So maybe he actually meant, there's not much damage, and saying it another way. Because by saying casualty of light, you're implying like 5 people died, and that's not a big deal.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, what's the difference between light casualties and like heavy casualties? Like, if 60 people die, is that light, and then 61 they're at heavy? Like, and then it matters.
I honestly, I don't understand it either, and that's why I wrote it down. I didn't understand the term. I was like, maybe he just means not much damage, but I couldn't remember what he said right before, because he said he listed the 2 damaged areas, and then he said some casualties are light. So after he lists those things, did he mean like, oh, blah blah blah, so the damage was minimal, or like I'm basically not sure what? Yeah, it's very, very weird.
Yeah, they didn't take a lot of damage. Only a few people died.
When this was all going on, I was like, oh, what if Bones was in the middle of surgery? They weren't expecting to be attacked, right? So with he cutting someone open, all of a sudden he
right there.
Like, oops, I didn't mean to cut you in half.
Yeah, just another casualty on the table. But he doesn't care. He's killed like 8 this month, I'm sure.
With the great doctor.
Yeah, they just they didn't really react to that at all. He's like, yeah, some people died, and Kirk's just like, all right, like, cool, I guess. And they just keep going. Just another fucking day in the life of Captain Kirk. So yeah, I have now we can't realistically track how many deaths that have happened under Kirk's command.
We should say at least 2, because they made it sound plural. So we could just say at least 2 people died.
No, they didn't make it sound anything.
Just
casualties are light. That term can mean anything, though. That's the issue.
Yeah, could be 10, could be 100.
Well, no, but the term casualty could be like what I meant by damage is light, meaning like he said all that stuff, and afterwards he summed it up with casualties are light, implying that everything he just said means damage is light, like damage is minimal. Yeah. So like that, you can't even say 1, you can't say 0, you can't say any, because it might not be nothing. It's just the way Spock talks sometimes is so weird.
Well, no, the casualty specifically refers to people, though. Like the damage to the ship is damage to the ship.
I would think that, but they didn't react at all. So there's no.
It's because Kirk don't give a shit about his people.
So we have to be like, look, do we really think people die in a ship and Kirk had nothing, one thought of them at all?
Look, we know that all he gives a shit about is the ship itself. He don't give a fuck how many people die on there as long as the ship itself survives.
I'm just saying, it's kind of weird for me to think, like he really wants. Like somebody died and he didn't give one thought to it at all. I can't put that past Kirk. I don't know.
I will say in the defense of Kirk, they were just attacked, so maybe his immediate attention is like, hey, there might be other ships out there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is they're like specifically in a wartime scenario. Not even just scenario, like they're in the middle of a wartime act. So you can't sit and mourn the loss of, the 20 or 30 people that died in the lower decks. But still,
for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 seconds, I mean, like acknowledge him. Like,
he ain't got time for that shit.
He's shell shocked.
He's gotta go fuck up people's way of life again.
I mean, don't get me there. That's later on, but still.
So Uhura says that Starfleet Command has issued a Code 1, and Kirk explains that they're now officially at war with the Klingon Empire. And Spock is like, oh, it's really curious how humans manage to obtain that which they do not want, or they often do that, and then they just begin their journey to Organia.
And, you know, when Spock said that, I'm like, that's kind of hypocritical because you got like half your race of people that wage war with the Federation.
Well, they're not really. If you're talking about the Romulans, they're like an offshoot.
Yeah, but
specifically.
The term is. I think you think of the term the wrong way. So implying like, I think you think about it the best way I thought about it, like, you know, I never would want a divorce, but in the end, sometime I could end up getting a divorce. Somehow it obtained something I didn't want. I never wanted a divorce, but somehow I ended up getting divorced anyway. So I think it's more about, you know, like how many times in life that you end up in a situation that you didn't want to be in, but somehow
that you tried to stay out of, and somehow you ended up
there. Situations, or you end up having choices and the repercussions, things like that. So I think it's more about that idea than it is about anything else. It's just really clever the way you said it, though.
Yeah. So we get the show opening, and then we get a captain's log that just explains that they're now orbiting Organia, and they have seen no signs of hostile activities. And Uhura informs Kirk that another unit is reporting that a fleet of Klingon ships is in its sector. So Kirk has Sulu tell the phaser crews to stand by and put full power to the deflector screens. And he says that he and Spock are going to go down to the planet's surface, and he's going to leave Sulu in charge for this one. So he says, hey, your responsibility is to the Enterprise and not to, you know, myself or Spock. And he tells Sulu that if the Klingon fleet shows up, then he is to retreat to safety and not attack them alone.
I saw that, by the way, when he put Sulu in charge. I wrote that down. I said it's the first time I can remember top of my head that Kirk actually told him he was in charge and told him what to do.
And also now Kirk doesn't worry about the probability of both him and Spock being killed from last episode.
Right. He's not so worried about that shit now, is he? I'm gonna take my fucking number one down to this really dangerous planet. Yeah, Sulu's been in charge before, but I don't. Yeah, we haven't like specifically seen Kirk tell him like, "Hey, you're the fucking man now." So yeah, Kirk and Spock, they beam down to the planet and notice that the primitive people are basically all around them, and they don't give a fuck. They just saw these two people materialize in front of them. Like, these people are. It's like what, pre-medieval, I guess you could say. Like, they have just like a really kind of shitty village. Like, everything's made of stone.
Well, that and their goats are green.
Yeah, they have that fucking spray painted goat. They're
I saw that goat. I saw that green goat. I said, yo, was that goat green? I paused it, went back. I was like, yeah, that goat's green. And I thought, you know what, Paul? Don't do nothing. Just let it go.
It's so crazy that they have to throw something like that in to remind you it's an alien planet.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing about this show. This show does like the best way and the most dumbest way of making every planet seem different. It might be something that's a terrible prop that, like these flowers that don't weigh anything. It may be spraying a goat green. Whatever the idea is, somebody's like, yo, man, so I was thinking that maybe sipping on a little scotch, green goats. He was like, yo, that's like green goats. Green goats, put it in.
Yeah, like, we can do that. We can do that.
Like, can we put them in like can we get the guys in fancy dress shirts and like put some but you mean like dresses with the shirts? Real long dresses? Yeah, let's put on a real big t-shirt, baggy t-shirt. Let's do this. Oh, can we put them in pajamas? Oh, let's do that too. Like, can we give them gold teeth, gold eye? Like, literally, like whatever idea somebody throws out there for each different culture, they literally go full in on it within the show.
They say, "Fuck it, let's go."
Let's go.
Well, they did a half-assed job painting that goat, though.
This show, like the art direction, I guess the term would be art direction, and the creative team for this show, like they should got so many awards. I don't know. I never really looked back, but they should have won so many awards for creativity and originality and something new. Because even looking at this nowadays, I think I never feel like I'm in the same area any episode.
I just think it's funny that like that's how they decide to show you it's an alien planet. Like, everything is perfectly fine. Like, it's exactly as you would see it on Earth, and then it's like, oh shit, green goat. Okay, that's alien planet. All right.
It's just really, really interesting how they seen the way to do things.
Yeah. So Spock notes that there's some castle ruins in the distance, and he says that it's inconsistent with the reports that they've received about the culture on the planet, because they're like, they're not supposed to have castles and shit. They didn't make it that far. And a dude comes out from their little village walls, and his name is Aelborn, and he welcomes them to the planet, and Kirk introduces himself and Spock, and then Kirk just wants to talk to whoever's in charge, and Aelborn says that they don't really have an authority there, but that he's the chairman of the Council of Elders.
Do you think he likes ale?
Well, he is Aelborn, so he was born of ale. Maybe he is ale. Wait, no, we know he's not. We've seen this episode. So Aelborn leads them into the chambers so that they can have a discussion. And on the way, Spock is just like, hey, I know we're like here to do some important shit, but I just want to kind of wander around a village and make some studies. And Kirk's just like, all right, fuck it, go ahead. So he just goes and does that.
Spock's like, I'm going to go pick up some women.
Yeah, they're on this really important diplomatic mission to try to basically gain control of a very strategically important planet in this war that they just found themselves in. And Spock's like, I want to go scan some shit. And Kirk's just like, all right, see you later. Like, I know he trusts him at this point, that pretty much whatever Spock says he's going to go do, it's probably something important, but still, it's just really weird. He's like, I'm just going to go scan some shit real quick.
For me, though, I think it's more about Spock is just so surprised that where they are technologically. Wow, I can't say that word already. Technology-wise, that he's like, well, I need to go study to find out what's going on. So I'm really curious about why this planet is at the level we know it should be.
Yeah, he's like, why the fuck are these people so dumb? Like, that's more important than the war. I need to go figure this shit out.
Yeah.
Just drives him crazy.
I think he's just curious. But I think he also knows that whatever he learns out there can help them in their path to trying to get them to let the Federation help them, etc., etc.
Yeah, so they go into the council chambers, and Kirk explains basically the situation with the Klingons and offers them the Federation's protection. And he's like, hey, you toss us a couple $100 a month, and if you don't pay up, we'll come break your legs. But if you do pay up, we'll stop other mobsters from coming in. Yeah. So the council members are like, yeah, that sounds cool and all, but no thank you. And they said that they really don't have anything that would interest any other people. So, like, why would anybody ever go there? And Kirk explains that the Klingons want the planet for its military strategic use. And he offers to help them build up defenses, and they're just like, nah, we're good. Like, we really don't need your shit.
Yeah, they were dumb and smug about it.
Yeah, and right away they give off that, like, okay, there's something, more than meets the eye here. Because they're just like, nah, we really don't need your help. Like, we're fine. Like, we don't need anybody, chilling at our planet.
Like, we don't have weapons.
Okay, so I know it's kind of weird, but in the middle of this, Paul had a technical difficulty, so he's not actually going to be able to finish up this episode with us. So Dan and I are just going to kind of soldier on together, I guess. I don't know, weird situation. So we will just kind of continue from where we left off, which was Kirk being really, really stubborn. And after they refused his help twice, he tries again, and they're just like, nah, we're good. We still don't need your help. And they tell him that he should go back to his ship as soon as possible. So he tries again, like one more time. He's just like, this is like the fourth time. And they just keep telling him no, and he just keeps trying because apparently he doesn't know what the fuck no means. And they ask him to excuse himself so that they can discuss it in private. So he just kind of like takes a few steps away, like towards the door. He just kind of stands there like an idiot.
It's kind of weird because, I'm conflicted, between the two, the back and forth here. Like, he's like, hey, Klingons will enslave you. They're going to wipe you out.
Right.
But if someone who doesn't want help, what do you do?
Right, exactly. Like, eventually you just have to resign them to their own fate. But really, I think the thing that he gives a shit about is that the planet is a strategic point for both sides, and that's all he cares about. He just doesn't want that place to fall into the hands of the Klingons. But, like, why do these people have to fight? I mean, they're fucking spaceships. The battle is mostly going to be in space, right? These people don't really need to defend themselves on the ground, do they?
It depends. Well, the Klingons would have to probably do some type of land invasion.
The other weird thing about this show is that it acts like every time they go to a planet and they go to like a city or a town or a village, it acts like that is the entire planet. Like what else is out there on this planet? Are they the only establishment there? Is the rest of the planet just completely empty?
I've wondered that also.
Yeah, like if that's the case, why would the Klingons or anybody even need to come there and fuck with them at all? Like they could be on the other side of the planet doing stuff. It's this really weird like scale. They never really explain how populated that planet actually is in any episode.
Because some planets seem like they're small, where there's only, maybe 20, 30, human colonies, or not colonies, but like people on that planet.
Right. Yeah, it's just really, really weird. But yeah, Kirk's just hanging out by the door, and Spock comes in and tells him that their information on the people and their culture there wasn't right, and that the society isn't making any progress at all. And he says that there hasn't been any advancement in tens of thousands of years. So Kirk just thanks him, and he goes back to the table to talk to the council again. And the council's like, look, we talked it over, and we told you no like 6 times, and it's still no. Like, we don't want your help, and you should probably just leave. So he's like, okay, well, in that case, if you let us help you, we can send you people to help advance your society. And, all you have to do is allow the Federation to help you against the Klingons. And they start to refuse him again, but they get interrupted by Kirk's communicator going off. So he gets a call from Sulu, and Sulu tells him that the Klingon fleet has arrived, and that the Enterprise is under fire, and they can't drop their defensive screens long enough to beam Kirk and Spock back aboard the ship. And Kirk is like, okay, well, you have your orders, so go ahead and leave, and just come back, if the odds are more in your favor. And then he just hangs up on him, as he does every time he uses that damn thing.
Well, he, before he even beamed down, he told Sulu, like, if this happened, get out of here.
Right. Yep. Just leave. Don't try to save us. Get on out of there and save the ship, because he's in love with it.
You gotta give his crew credit that they want to stand by him, but they're also kind of disobeying an order. Like, Sulu should just call down, like, hey, sorry, man, we gotta leave ya. The Klingons are attacking. And,
I think that's basically what he was doing. Yeah, I think he was mostly just kind of like letting him know.
Well, to me, it kind of seemed like he wanted to stick around and like try to rescue, Spock and Kirk.
Yeah, he probably did. But yeah, I think he was just mostly like, hey, they're here. We gotta go. Sorry, like, we'd rescue if you could, but you told us to leave. So Kirk's just like, all right, get on out of here, you little scamp.
Go find the Federation and bring back more ships.
So Kirk approaches the table again, and Aelborn starts to decline their help. And then another guy speaks up, and his name is Trefane, which thank God I had the English subtitles, because there's no fucking way I would have picked that out. Like, it just looks like pure gibberish, so any language I would have read it in, I would not have picked that out as his name. He says that 8 space vehicles are orbiting their planet, and they are activating their material transmission units. So Kirk turns to Spock, and he's like, hey, is this fucking crazy guy right over here? And Spock's like, I don't know, nothing I got says that that's happening, but it does seem logical that would be happening right now. And Aelborn says that the council has to protect Kirk and Spock, and Trefane says that several hundred men have appeared near the Citadel, and that they all have many weapons. And so Kirk is like, how do you know that? And Aelborn's like, oh, whatever. Like, he just completely blows it off. It's like, yeah, we're not interested in having that conversation. So Kirk and Spock turn to talk in private, but it ends with just Kirk getting pissed off, and because he's like, these people won't let me help them. I'm trying to meddle, and they won't let me do it. And it just goes to a commercial break from there.
Kirk, these last few episodes has been very hands-on at intervening where people don't want him to intervene.
Yeah, he really has. He's been just like unnecessarily up in everybody's business. He didn't seem like Kirk this episode.
Well, I'll say in his defense, though, I think he's coming from a good place, because he knows what the Klingons are capable of doing.
Right.
So he's coming from a good place.
Yeah, he's just he's very I don't know, he can't take no for an answer. Like, if they don't want your help, then they don't want your help, guy. Like, you gotta let it go. Nothing you can do about it. Like, what are you gonna do? Bring in your fleet and like enslave them and be like, see, like, we're helping you.
At one point I was kind of waiting for him to kind of say that, like, hey, the Federation will just come in and do it then.
Right. Like, yeah, that's the only other option.
Well, and I think you're right in on target and earlier when we were talking, saying that, Kirk's more worried about this planet falling into the Klingons' hands than it is about saving them.
Yeah.
Because I think he's looking at it also from a military standpoint.
Right, yeah. If it's that big of a strategic advantage, then, they don't want to give that up. But But I mean, realistically, like the Federation could just show up and just be everywhere else on that planet and not mess with them, right? Like they could defend the planet without interfering with the village, I feel like.
Yeah, because we're never told that all we know is that there's a village on the whole planet.
Right. And so like the village itself isn't the strategic point, it's the planet itself. So I don't know.
And the Federation and they could coexist.
Yeah, they'd be fine. But yeah, so we come back from the commercial break and we get a captain's log as the Klingons are marching through the village. And Kirk explains that they've been given some native clothing to disguise themselves as some locals, which really he just like keeps the same color shirt on, just like it's a worse looking shirt. And Spock notes that their phasers are gone. He's like, hey, somebody took our shit. And Kirk asks Aelborn if he took them, and Aelborn's like, yeah, I did take them, and I'm not going to give them back to you because you guys might be tempted to use them, and we're not going to allow that. And he says that Kirk should be able to pass as Organian, but Spock is going to have a little bit of a problem with them ears. And one of the council members says that Spock could pose as a Vulcan traitor of Kivas and Trillium, which are both harmless to Klingons, so they shouldn't really take any interest. And Spock's like, yeah, that actually seems right. Like, I think I can go along with that.
He's like, I like to sell shit.
Yeah, he's like, I fantasize about this, just being a traveling merchant. So the Klingons enter the room, and a man named Kor introduces himself as the military governor of Organia. So he's already like, this is my place. I just got here, and I am the military governor.
Hold up, before we go down that road. So I've watched a little bit of The Next Generation. So these Klingons don't look anything like the Klingons I know of.
No, yeah. I believe from what I read in this episode is that they were described in the script as like Oriental looking people. And that's really like, that's just what they worked with.
So I guess later on they advanced them to the current Klingons that we know of from The Next Generation. Yeah,
they probably just looked at them and said, hey, we need to set them apart from, humans in at least a little way so that they don't just look so similar.
Yeah, it actually kind of took me out of the episode knowing what Klingons should look like compared to what they were projected from the original series, which would make them their true selves, because that's how they were originally presented.
Yeah, I've seen some arguments online, like through our Twitter and stuff, of people, arguing about what the Klingons are actually supposed to be. And I think a lot of people have brought up that, like, well, they could be separate tribes or, kind of offshoots of the Klingon Empire where they are still Klingon, but, they are from a different place or something like that, or just like a different tribe or something, and that's why they look different.
They would evolve into something different from their home planet, from conquering other planets.
Yeah, basically, I think something like that.
I could accept that.
It's so weird, though, because the fan base is really weird about shit like that. They're like, oh, this is what they look like in the original series, so everything after that isn't real. And it's like, guys, like, I get, you're trying to make sense of it in the show, but sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you have to look at it and go, yeah, it was a limitation of the time, or somebody came up with a better idea later. And, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not like it's
jumping
this
from
big,
like the
major
60s
change.
to the 80s. That's
exactly.
That's a big jump in technology and what you're able to do with special effects. So
yeah, and makeup and stuff like that. So yeah, like if they change later, it's not like this big world change. It doesn't change the whole series. You know what I mean? Or like the entire franchise. Like, oh, the Klingons look different. Well, this show is fucked. Like, I'm not watching this anymore.
Right. Well, I think if you want to look from a evolutionary standpoint, kind of what you're saying, like these Klingons could have been from a different part of the Empire that took a different evolutionary route, being on different planets from their home planet. So I could buy that.
Right. And then, like, in a series where all kinds of people have godlike powers and things, like, wrinkly foreheads are the last thing I'm questioning about any of this,
That's not where you draw the line at?
No, yeah. I mean, like, the shit that we've seen so far, like, I'm not questioning that. So yeah, Kor, military governor of Organia, and he approaches Kirk and asks who he is, and Aelborn's like, oh yeah, that's just Barriner. He's one of our leading citizens. And Kor gets really mad that Kirk didn't answer for himself. He's like, hey, like, don't you talk? And so Kirk speaks up, and he's like, yeah, I do talk. And Kor, He wonders why Kirk doesn't have the stupid, idiotic smile that everyone else seems to have. That's what he says. And
well, in fairness, there was no women in the room, so there was no reason for Kirk to smile.
Yeah, exactly. And so Kor spots Spock over the corner, and Spock's just like, "What's up? I'm Spock. I deal in Kivas and Trillium." Like, he doesn't even give himself a fake name. He's just like, "Yeah, I'm Spock."
He's like, "I got that good shit that you're looking for."
Yeah, he just opens up his trench coat. He's like, "You need some Kivas or Trillium?" And the Klingons are like, "No, don't you know we're not interested in that?"
He's like, "But are you though?"
Yeah, I don't even know what Kivas and Trillium are. Trillium just sounds like a metal. Kivas could be a drug. He could just be posing as a drug dealer. Can you imagine the fucking space drugs that they found
Vulcan
by
drugs.
now? Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Like, there has to be some shit out there. Everybody's just back at that
I
planet.
wonder if they ever touch upon that.
I wonder if I bet they do. They have to in like the Next Generation, right? Being that it's the 80s and all, there has to have been like a drug-free episode.
Oh, I'm going through it, so if it happens, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah. There has to be, especially in that time frame. But Kor doesn't believe Spock, and he says that Vulcans are Federation members and Spock might be a spy, so he just orders him to be taken away. And then that's when Kirk speaks up for Spock, and Kor's like, "Wow, that's really impressive that you would, talk to me like that." And he says that it's practically an act of rebellion for Organians. He says that he's like, "Hey, the council is welcoming me here. Like, do you welcome me as well?" And Kirk just says, "Well, you're here, and there's nothing that I can do about it." And Kor is like, "Wow, I really find your good, honest hatred very refreshing." He's like, "I really love to be hated." He's a wrestling heel. Like, he does the shit he does to get the booze. That's all he cares about. So Kor tells everyone that they are now the subjects of the Klingon Empire and that there will be rules and regulations posted, and that if even the smallest one is broken, it's going to be punished with death. And Aelborn is just like, "Okay, whatever your rules and regulations are, we're going to follow those."
We want to be enslaved.
Yeah, they really just don't give a shit. And Kor goes back to Kirk and he's like, "Hey, do you disapprove of this?" And Kirk is like, "Well, is my approval really needed?" And Kor's like, "No, I really only need your obedience."
Which, what a line.
Yeah, he's just like, "I don't give it, like, I asked you if you approve, but in the end, I don't really give a shit. Like, you just need to listen." So Kor goes on to say that he needs a liaison between the occupying forces and the civil population, but he doesn't trust people who smile too much. So Kirk's got the job. And Kirk says that he doesn't want the job, and Kor just doesn't give a shit. He's like, "I didn't fucking ask you if you wanted it. I'm telling you have it."
He's like, "I mentioned this is a dictatorship, right?"
Right.
Did I miss telling you guys that?
He's like, "Have you been here for this conversation at all? Like, do you even know what's happening here?" Which, I mean, good for Kirk. Like, he started a whole new life as an Ogranian, and he's already getting a promotion within like 5 minutes. He'll make captain in no time.
5 minutes.
If he sticks around, I bet he could be the captain of a Klingon ship in like a year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Kor says that if even one Klingon soldier dies, then they're going to kill 1,000 Organians, and the council is just like, "That sounds cool. We're not going to do anything bad." So Kor tells Kirk that he's like, "You're going to go with me. You're going to learn your new duties." And Kirk is like, "Well, what about Spock over there?" And Kor says that Spock is going to be examined, and if they find out he's lying, then he's going to be killed. And Spock gets taken away, and Kirk moves forward to like stop them, but Kor holds him back. And Kor's like, "Hey, I noticed you don't really like to be pushed, and that makes me really happy. And I think you're somebody I can deal with." And then they all walk out of the room, and like every time anybody greets anybody on this planet before the Klingons show up, they do this really weird, like kind of half bow, like weird hand opening gesture, like arms open kind of gesture. And Kirk does that when he leaves, like to the council, but it's really fucking sarcastic and it's hilarious.
Yeah. He was very passive aggressive with it.
Yeah, he's just like, just fucking stupit bow bullshit. He's like, "Thanks for nothing, you dicks."
I try to help. He's like, "I try to help these assholes. They
right.
They told me no."
Right. So a little bit later, Kor is in his office with Kirk, and they're going over the new rules. And Spock gets brought in, and the guard that brings him in confirms that Spock is really a merchant. It's really unusual for Vulcans, but he has an apprehension towards the Klingons, and his mind is remarkably disciplined. And the guard says that they used Force 4 against Spock, which is sufficient to break down any pretense. And I was like, they have fucking torture levels? like what are the levels of that? Like, just like you start with, I don't know, like pulling his ear or something, and they're like, that's not working, let's go to force 2. Just like start punching him. Like, Jesus Christ.
Well, number 4, you'd imagine they're probably going for the area where you don't want to get hit at.
Yeah, and I wonder how many torture levels there are. Like, does it go to 10? If it goes to 5, then good for Spock for holding out. Like, if it goes to 4, then even better, you know? He did great.
Like, Spock's the man.
He is. Actually, it's kind of a problem. Like, of course he's going to fucking withstand this thing, because they go on to talk about, like, Kor's like, hey, I can use this mind sifter, and he also calls it a mind ripper. And depending on how much force is used, like, it's either the sifter or, you know, they turn it up and it's the ripper. And like, I could use this on you, Kirk. He says that they can record every bit of thought and knowledge in a man's mind, but when that much force is used, the mind is usually emptied permanently, and what's left is more vegetable than human. And he's like, it's drastic, but it's very efficient. And then Spock is over there and he just like raises an eyebrow. He's like, yeah, dude, I took level 4 of that thing and it ain't shit. So whatever. But like, that's the issue with him, is he has no weakness. Like, they just go fucking rooting around his brain and like just scoop the thing out and read all of his thoughts and put it back in, and like somehow he masks who he really is and what he's really doing there, just because he's a fucking Vulcan. And they're just like, yeah, you know, he really is this traitor. And it's kind of total horseshit that Spock just really is impervious to everything so far.
Well, and if they were to do that to Kirk, they're like, man, this guy's been with a lot of women.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
there's no...
Jesus Christ.
Like, does he do anything else besides women? Like, damn.
They go digging through there, and it's just basically like they're browsing Pornhub.
Hey, maybe we'd finally get an answer to what happened to Janice.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to use like Force 6 for that one. He keeps that buried.
He's like, I don't have a kid. I don't have a kid. I don't have a kid.
Yeah. So Kirk asks Spock if he's okay, and Spock says, yeah, that was a really interesting experience. Like, just having somebody rip through my mind. Like, it was really interesting. And Kor dismisses Spock and says, hey, you know, we're going to watch you at all times. So watch what you're doing there, buddy. And then he dismisses Kirk and tells him to keep the people of Organia in order, and says that if Kirk doesn't manage to do that, then they're going to kill him. So we go to a little bit later, and Spock and Kirk are talking about the Mind Ripper, and Kirk is just like, yeah, I don't really think that it's that big of a deal. Spock is like, well, it actually reaches directly into your mind, and Vulcans have certain disciplines that enable them to maintain a shield, and without the shield, he would have had absolutely no protection against it, which again, like, it's just one of those things that, of course, you know, Spock's fucking Batman. He's got an answer to everything. Like, it's not a gadget, it's just like him. Like, he's just the fucking answer to everything.
Like, because I'm Spock.
Yeah, like he's like, oh yeah, they put me on a table and they fucking brought a large drill down into my chest like a villain in a Bond movie, but because I'm a Vulcan, you know, my skin's a little harder, so it couldn't even get through. Like, it's horseshit. Everything that ever happens to him, he just gets through with no problem. Except for being in command. Well, that messed him up a little.
If Kirk is Superman, it's only logical for Spock to be Batman.
Yeah. He's kind of a mix, though, because like he is physically stronger than everybody, too. So,
well, Batman can hang in there with, you know, beings that, you know, can destroy planets.
Yeah, oh god, I'm not going to get into that. No, I'm not going to do it.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole?
No. So they're walking around, you know, they're just talking, having a good time, and they bump into a guard, and the guard pushes Kirk, and Kirk goes to retaliate, but Spock steps between them and apologizes, like, oh, sorry. And the guard says that they need to keep their eyes open or he's going to shut them permanently. And then he pushes Spock, and like, that's a fucking solid threat. Like, you better watch where you're going or fucking shut your eyes permanently, you piece of shit.
Kirk is very aggressive in this episode.
He is. He's aggressive, like, the entire, like, even just talking, he's fucking aggressive. It's really weird. And I wasn't really a big fan of it, but I'll save that for later. But, yeah, so the guy pushes Spock, and Kirk tries to retaliate again, and Spock holds him back, and he's like, maybe we should just focus on accomplishing our mission here. And Kirk jokingly asks if Spock thought that he was really going to beat that guard's head in, and Spock's like, yeah, I thought so. And Kirk's like, well, you were right. So they move on, and they walk away, and Kirk starts talking about trying to persuade the Organians into fighting back, and he mentions that there's a munitions dump nearby, and it was really weird. Like, I went back over this dialogue a couple of times, and they said words, but they didn't really amount to anything. Like, I don't know what the fuck they were talking about. They're just like, yeah, there's a munitions dump, and maybe we can do something with that. And then, like, that was just kind of that. So we go to a little bit later in the evening, and they're sneaking past some guards, and they take one of them out along the way, and they go to the munitions dump. And then Spock primes a sonic grenade, and I don't know where the fuck he got that, but he throws it in a crate full of chemical explosives, and then they run away, and the crate explodes a few seconds later.
I think they took him from the Klingons.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, but maybe did I miss it? Like, when they took out that guy, did they take one off him? Or maybe just the fact that they're in a munitions dump, maybe there were some around at that point?
Well, Spock ran after the one guard, so we never saw him take him down, so we don't know, I guess, if he took a weapon off him or not.
Right, yeah, that's fair. Oh, wait, no, was that here? Because I thought they just took out the one guard on the outside here.
Kirk jumped on the one Klingon that entered the room, because another guard had left the room prior to that, and Spock went around and chased him down.
I thought that was what happened a little bit later, though. Fuck, I don't remember.
I said I
just
Kirk
watched this yesterday, and I don't remember.
Oh, see, I watched it this morning.
Okay. Yeah, you might be right. I'm not, I don't remember. You might be right on this one, because I know that we get a really similar scene a little bit later, too. So after the explosion, some time passes, and Kirk is talking to the council, the Organian council, and he's confessing what he did and blowing stuff up, and saying that he did it to show them that they can fight back against the Klingons. And the council is just like, you idiot. Like, what part of we don't want any part of this don't you understand? So Spock is agreeing with Kirk here, and he tries to persuade them on the promise that the Federation fleet is on its way, but Aelborn disagrees, and Kirk just says, well, then you guys are spineless. Like, basically, he's just like, you guys are just spineless fucking cowards. You don't want to fight for your own planet.
At this point, Kirk dislikes them more than the Klingons, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely hates them. But Kor is listening through some kind of device that's on the wall, like a really big, obvious device on the wall that doesn't fit in at all, that I feel like they should have noticed was in there. And,
hey, what's that object right there? Oh, don't mind that.
Yeah. Wait, did I say Kirk was listening or Kor was listening? Either way, Kor was the one listening in his office. And, so yeah, he sends some of his men to go to the council chambers, and so they all go there, and Kor just starts talking down to the council for being cowards, and he says that Kirk is going to get killed after he experiences the mine sifter ripper scanner thing. I think he actually called it a mine scanner here. He's called it like 3 different things.
It has multiple uses.
Yeah. It scans, it sifts, it rips, and it's yours for 3 easy payments of $29.99.
Oh, wow. I'd buy one.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. If you call now, you get an extra one. I actually kind of miss those commercials.
I do too.
But Aelborn is like, wait a minute, that's Captain Kirk. He's a captain of the Enterprise. He's not really Baroner. And Cora's super fucking happy about it. He's very delighted that he caught the captain of the Enterprise, and says that, he's just kind of disappointed that because he'd hoped to meet him in battle. And then they just like talk for a second. They go to a commercial break, and they come back, and they're still in that room. Like, I thought they would have changed scenes, but they're in the same scene, and Kor is still just being an asshole to the council. And the council's apologizing to Kirk and saying that they just didn't want to see him get hurt. And Kirk is like, you know what? I am used to the idea of dying, but I do not have the desire to die for the likes of you. Like, that's just really fucked up. He really does not like them. And what's even funnier about
I tried to save you guys.
Yeah, and what's even funnier about this though is Kor is like, yeah, I agree. Like, these guys are fucking trash. And he has
then they look at each other like, did we just become best friends?
Yeah, right. Like, they fucking put their arm around each other and like leave and having a chat. Like, yeah, these guys are cowards. Like, Kor's like, you see those stupid smiles? And Kirk's like, yeah, and they just laugh about it.
He's like, enslave those motherfuckers.
Yeah, let's enslave them together. Fuck this. Fuck the Federation. Fuck the Klingons. We're just gonna go tear this galaxy up together. So yeah, so Kor has has Kirk taken to his office for a little chat while they escort Spock away, and they go to Kor's office, and for some reason everybody always every one of Kirk's enemies offers him a drink, and he always just refuses it, and Kor's like, yeah, just have a drink, like I just want to chat with you. And I was looking, and I think this is like the second or third time I've seen that they've reused these liquor glasses, but man, I really want those. They're cool as shit. They're small, like kind of triangular. It's just a cool looking glass. Like, it's something really fancy to just like drink whiskey out of.
Are you going to offer that to your enemies when you've captured them? Offer them a drink in one of those glasses?
No, they just get the mind sifter. Is all. Yeah,
you're not going to rip their minds?
No, the sifters or the liquors for me. They don't get any of that.
Well, that'll rip your mind also.
Yeah, in a totally different way. You can recover from that one, though.
Totally different way.
So Kirk doesn't want to talk, and Kor says, all right, well, you can either talk here or you can talk on the mind scanner. And Kor confesses his admiration for Starfleet and for Kirk himself. And he says that they're very similar, like their species are very similar because they're basically like the predators that are on the planet where they're on, and everybody else is the sheep. Of course, Kirk doesn't agree with that, but he knows it's true. Kor asks, he's like, okay, let's get down to business. Like, let's talk about the dispersal of the Starfleet. And Kirk just tells him to go climb a tree, which I don't know if that was like a harder insult back in the day, but like now it's just really silly. Obviously, he can't just come out and say, go fuck yourself, but...
Maybe we should bring that back. Go climb a tree.
Yeah, anytime hey, at work, I gotta mandate you. Go climb a tree.
Go climb a tree.
I'm gonna do it next time. I'm gonna use that tomorrow, I think. Why don't you go climb a tree? So, Kor again is just like, well, I could use the mind scanner, but he says he doesn't want to see Kirk become a vegetable. And he talks about Spock and his ability to block the scanner, and he says that he's going to have Spock dissected to find out how he does it. Like, he's just like a fucking animal. It's just, what would he be expecting to see? They cut open Spock's skull, and there's just like a shield around his brain, just like a literal shield. Like, that's how he does it.
Like, they implanted something in their skull to... Well, it's generating a shield. What the hell?
It's just like a little shield in there. So, he says that Spock's going to be killed, which is a given. And he says, all right, well, you're just going to be a vegetable unless you tell me what I want to know in 12 hours. And like, fuck, dude, another time limit. He says that he respects Kirk, but that they're at war and it's a game that the Klingons play to win. And he has Kirk escorted to the cells with Spock. So they toss him in the cell onto the very obviously padded floor, which I thought was pretty funny.
I thought that was really nice that they made prisons that had padding.
Yeah, it had some obvious bounce to it that it wasn't supposed to have, but it's not like you could just toss William Shatner on a concrete floor, because that would be really fucked up. And we just get a passing of time here, like a passing of time wipe. And Spock says that they have 6 hours and 43 minutes left. So they've been doing absolutely nothing for almost 6 hours, just like sitting in silence, I guess. And Kirk explains that they have to directly attack Kor. He's like, we got to go right after this guy, like no bullshit. And they discuss the Organians and their unwillingness to get involved. And then suddenly their cell door opens and Aelborn walks in. And he explains that the Klingons plan to do violence to them and that he can't let that happen. So Kirk obviously doesn't trust Aelborn since he was the one who turned him in. And Aelborn explains that they really don't have a choice but to trust him. Like, they can either stay in the cell or they can leave. And they decide to leave.
Oh, now he wants to get involved.
Well, he didn't want them to do violence to them, which is a really weird way to say that. But Aelborn escorts them back to the council room for some reason, because I guess they didn't build another set.
Well, they're probably like, they'll never look for him here.
Well, they did that. Did they do that recently? Yeah, they did do that recently. A
couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
They went back to where they were being held captured.
Right. So I guess with that logic, then they should have stayed in the cell, because you'd never think to look for them in the cell after they escaped from the cell, right?
they looked in there, they're gone. Then they're like, oh, hey, let's go back to the cell and just hide in there. They'll never look.
Yeah, you wouldn't look there again, right?
Well, no one just goes back to the cell willingly.
Right. But Kirk just accuses them of waiting to turn them in until there's a reward. He's like, yeah, you just freed me, and then when there's a bounty on my head, you're going to turn me back in for the reward. It's like, guy, like, I don't think you understand these people that you're dealing with at all. And Spock asks what happened to the guards at the Citadel, and Aelborn says that nothing happened to them at all. And then we cut to Kor's office, and a guard walks in and explains that Kirk and Spock have escaped, but the 10 guards out there don't know how the hell it happened. Kor's just like, all right, let's implement Special Occupation Order number 4. Like, fuck, dude, they have occupied enough places that they have, like, numbered orders for it.
As long as they don't order 66 anyone.
I think that would imply that they have Klingon Jedi, which now I kind of want to see. I bet they would all have yellow lightsabers. So we go back to the council room, and Kirk is still just berating the council. Like, they're putting up with a lot of shit this episode. He's asking how they helped him escape. Kor makes an announcement over the loudspeaker, explaining that in the courtyard of his headquarters, they have 200 Organians that are about to be killed. And then you just hear, like, a bunch of phasers going off. And he says that 200 more will die every 2 hours until Spock and Kirk are returned to them. And then we go to a commercial break. We come back, and Kirk just wants his phasers back, and Aelborn refuses to give them up, so Kirk threatens him with violence. He's like, I'm going to do some violence to you. And Trefane is just like, just shut this fucking dude up and give him his phasers back. And Kirk is like, while that's going on, like as he's just telling Aelborn to give the phasers back, Kirk is just talking, and he's like, I don't like your people, like I don't like your fucking planet, I don't like your culture. But I guess I'm going to go possibly die to help you anyway for some stupid ass reason. Like, it's just being really shitty. It's like, I don't like your faces. I don't like your fucking clothes. I don't like anything about you.
I think this is the maddest we have seen Kirk.
Oh, yeah.
So far.
Yeah, he fucking hates that they're not doing anything.
And, well, they're being smug. They're being smug about it. At the same time.
Right. But they have a good reason to, we find out later. And I figured that they're not just really, really big conscientious objectors. Like, I figure there has to be more going on because, you know, it's Star Trek. And you would think Kirk would have learned that by now, too. That, like, basically nothing is ever what it seems in anything that he does. But nope. So, Aelborn just tells Kirk that it's hopeless and that it's only 2 of them against an entire army, but Kirk and Spock say, fuck it, I'd rather go out there and die than sit here with you smiling jackasses anyway. And when they leave, the council talks about what they're going to do, and Trefane has some, like, premonitions of terrible, savage events, and then they go, all right, well, we'll just wait it out then. That doesn't sound too terrible. We go a little bit later, Kirk and Spock are sneaking around the compound, and Kirk actually asks what their odds of accomplishing their task are, which you don't ask for the odds, we know that. And Spock says that their odds of getting out of there are 7,824.7 to 1. And Kirk's like, oh yeah, 7,824 to 1. That's not bad. And Spock's like, no, 7,824.7 to 1.
That 0.7 matters.
Yeah, fucking Spock. They set their phasers on stun, and Kirk says that if the situation calls for it, then they're going to have to kill people. But other than that, they're just going to try to stun them. And they take out a couple of guards with their phasers, and then they proceed a little further into the compound. We go back to the council room for a second while they're just sitting there with their eyes closed. Like, I assume they're just, like, watching the events unfold. Like, it's not explicitly said. Like, they don't say that, but you can kind of gather that's what's happening. And in Kor's office, he orders his men to round up 200 more people. And so they leave to do that, and Kirk is waiting outside with Spock, and they capture Kor's basically like his first officer and threatens to kill him if he doesn't give up some information. So the officer tells Kirk where Kor's office is, which is, it turns out it's like 3 steps away. He says that he's on his way to gather another 200 more people to be killed. So Kirk is just like, hey, yo, Spock, come do that Vulcan nerve thing. So he does that, and they knock the guy out. And then Kirk's like, yeah, you know, what are our odds now? And Spock says that their odds are now less than 7,000 to 1. And Kirk kind of cracks this joke that, hey, things are getting a little bit better for us. And they go into Kor's office. And they go in the office, and they hold Kor at phaser point as he commends them for getting through his guards. He's like, yeah, you guys did a pretty good job here. And Spock responds that several of the guards are no longer in perfect operating condition, which is just like his way of saying, like, yeah, we fucked them up. we beat the shit out of those guys.
It's like, they're not dead, but they're pretty useless at this point.
They're going to be out for a little while. And Kor reveals that a Federation fleet is on its way, and that the Klingon fleet is waiting to meet them. And he wants Kirk to wait to kill him until the end of the fleet battle. But Kirk is like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna kill you. And so Kor's like, well, fuck it then. Why don't we have a drink? And he wants to have a toast to the victory of the Klingon fleet. And Kor goes on to talk about how the Klingons are strong because they act as one and they're always under surveillance. And then he points to like that fucking device on the wall, and suddenly a group of guards rush in the door and aim their phasers. But when they go to shoot them, they just like they act like they're in pain and they drop them on the floor. And so Kirk and Spock rush in to attack them, but find that whenever they touch the guards, they experience that same pain. So then we cut to like a really weird like 2-second clip of the crew of the Enterprise shown just like experiencing the same thing as they all just like jump from their stations on the bridge. And I'm like, ow.
Yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah, it's just a weird insert. Like I didn't feel like that was really necessary.
Well, some of the people weren't even doing anything. The warrant being attacked.
Yeah.
On the Enterprise, like Uhura was just sitting there minding her own business. She's like, "Oh, I'm getting burned."
Yeah, like it gets explained that they experience an extreme heat. So there's just like one guy. Like I assume that it's because the entire ship is made for war and to hurt people, and like you figure that they can't grab their weapons or whatever. But that means there's like one guy just like sitting on the toilet in the Enterprise, and suddenly his ass cheeks start burning. Like he's like, "What the hell is this?" The fucking heated seat must be on the fritz.
That ghost pepper.
Yeah. So yeah, we go back to the office, and he runs over to his desk and grabs a dagger, but obviously he can't hold it. And the Organian Council just kind of like stroll into the room, and they apologize for interfering, and they say that they have to put a stop to the violence by making all of the instruments of violence on the planet radiate a temperature of 350 degrees, which is really, really specific. Aelborn says that the same conditions exist on both of the Starfleets, and that there is not going to be a battle. And he urges both captains to contact their ships to confirm that that's what's going on.
I love how both captains are mad that they can't fight.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both like super pissed about it.
Like it almost brings them together at this point. Like, you know what? The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right. Yeah, like so Kirk calls Sulu, and he confirms that yeah, the Enterprise is all fucked up, and it just like shuts down. And then Kor confirms the same thing with his fleet, and they're both just like super pissed, like, oh, we wanted to fight each other. And Aelborn, he says that as he stands there, he also stands on the home planets of the human and Klingon races, and he's going to stop the war, which I didn't really know what he meant by that. Like, is he like projecting himself there? Because we never got anything out of that. So it was a really weird thing to say, and then really kind of nothing came out of it. But yeah, this is where Kirk and Kor kind of like band together, and they say that Aelborn can't interfere, and that he says that he has to until they agree to stop all the hostilities, and all of their armed forces wherever they are going to be immediately immobilized, like the same as everything else was. And so Kirk and Kor are like arguing about it, like, oh yeah, well, you know, these guys started it, and you know, Kor's like, oh, these guys started it, and Aelborn just says like, all right, that's it. Everything you have is immobilized now. Like, you can't stop arguing, so I took away all your toys. Trefane says that they find them having to interfere in other people's affairs to be most disgusting. but that Kirk and Kor have given them no choice. He's just like, it's most disgusting. Yeah, so Kirk then brings up the fact that the 200 Organian hostages have been killed, and Aelborn and Trefane just kind of laugh it off, and they're like, nobody's died on our planet in uncounted thousands of years. And Kor's just like, you guys are a bunch of fucking liars. And then he and Kirk just continue to argue that the Organians have no right to dictate how they handle their interstellar relations. Yeah, it's just really funny that they banded together.
Which is ironic.
Yeah, especially given, you know, what the fucking Enterprise does all the time. God, I can imagine what Paul would have to say about this.
He would have a hot take.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, it's just really funny that they're like, well, like, you won't let us make war. Like, it's our right to kill each other. It's really ridiculous.
Basically what they are arguing.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous to see Kirk that way.
Well, I wonder if there isn't more backstory between like the Klingons and the humans having, you know, all out wars with each other.
Right. Yeah, I think that they've been having issues for quite some time, and this is just kind of like the first time that we're hearing about it. But it's funny, though, because Kirk does. Like, he's like, yeah, you know, you don't have the right to stop what we're doing. And then Aelborn asks Kirk, he's like, well, what about, you know, all of your acts of war and killing millions of innocent people and destroying life on a planetary scale? Like, is that what you're really defending here? Is like your right to be able to do that?
And damn, that was the moment where I kind of changed my opinion on on them was right then and there, because logically that made the most sense. Like, hey, you guys want to commit mass genocide on each other. You guys are insane.
Yeah, like you fly around, like you fuck each other up, and innocent people get caught in the crossfire. But yeah, that was the moment where Kirk was just basically like, okay, maybe I've been kind of a dick, and nobody really wants war, but through war we would eventually get peace. And Eoborn says that only after after millions of people have died would they then get peace. And he goes on to say that in the future, the Klingons and the Federation are actually going to be friends, and they're going to work together. And they're
they're both like, hell no.
Yeah. Like, no, never. And so they tell Kirk and Core to just leave, and they say that their presence of the presence of beings like them is painful for the Organians. And Kirk's just like, what do you mean, beings like you? And they go on to explain that millions of years ago, the Organians were humanoids, but they developed beyond the need for physical bodies, and that what Kirk and Core see is just an appearance for their own sakes. So Core is just like, nah, this is a trick, like this is horse shit. And he's like, hey, Kirk, you want to just jump these dudes? and Kirk didn't respond, but I think he's just like, yeah, like this is stupid. Like, let's just fucking go after him. And Eoborn and Trefane just start glowing really brightly, and they transform into like there's these beings of purple bright light for a second, and they emit like this really, really high pitched sound, and then they just disappear entirely. And Spock is just like, wow, that's really fascinating. They seem to be beings of pure energy and pure thought.
That's right up Spock's alley.
Yeah, that's the kind of shit he loves. Well, it's the kind of shit he finds fascinating, I guess. He doesn't really love anything. Kirk wonders about the rest of the planet, and Spock thinks that it was all created so that visitors would have a conventional point of reference when they arrived there. And Core is just like, is this kind of thing like really possible? And Spock says that the Organians are so far above them on the evolutionary scale that they're like basically like they are to us what we are to amoebas. And that just kind of stops everything, I guess. So Kirk is just like, okay, that concludes the war. Like, good game, everybody. The Organians aren't going to let us fight. And Core says, well, damn, that's kind of a shame, because it really would have been a glorious fight. We cut to a little bit later on the bridge, and Kirk tells Spock that he's embarrassed for having been furious at the Organians for stopping the war that he didn't want to begin with. And he says that it's unsettling to discover that humans aren't the most powerful beings in the universe. And I'm like, where the fuck have you been this whole series? Like, you fight gods every other week. Like, at no point have humans ever been the dominant
god
people
that you've gone up against.
Right.
You're Kirk, the god killer.
Yeah, and like they encounter it so often, they literally have the classification in their system for this. Like, you guys haven't been top
Gary
dog
Mitchell
this whole fucking series. Like, what do you mean? It's unsettling. Spock just says that it took millions of years for the Organians to evolve into what they are, and even the gods didn't spring into being overnight. And he says that they shouldn't be embarrassed, and that they did beat the odds after all. And Kirk is like, well, we really didn't, because the Organians raided the game. And then they just continue on to their next adventure. So, yeah, that was the end of that one. Dan, what did you think about that?
It was an interesting episode. My biggest complaint was it would have ruined the episode because there wouldn't have been an episode, but they should have just shown like, oh, hey, we're godlike beings. Like, we can see the future. We know exactly how this is all going to play out.
Right, yeah.
Like, he was able to predict, like, the Klingons and the humans would become, or not the humans, the Federations would become friends down the line, which we know it happens to be true.
Right.
But other than that, really complaint, I enjoyed the episode. I thought there was a lot of good dialogue in it. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good episode. Nothing like, thrilling, like nothing crazy. But yeah, you're right. Like, if they would have just said from the beginning, hey, we're actually beings of pure energy and we don't give a shit about any of this, then it would have been an entirely different episode. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, Kirk was really weird. He was oddly aggressive. He was just pissed at people who didn't want to partake in their war, which was really weird. Like, this whole thing of theirs this whole 5-year mission has been about like brokering peace between newly discovered civilizations, and he's just like, yeah, fuck the Klingons. Like he just fucking hates them. And I don't know, it was okay.
I believe he's missing Janice. That's why he has an attitude problem here lately.
Yeah. And also there's no McCoy on this one either. I feel like he would have had a lot to say about the situation. No Scotty.
Yeah, I believe this is the first episode where we didn't have McCoy in it, if I remember.
From what I read, I believe this is also the last episode that doesn't have McCoy. I believe he's in every single one for the rest of the series after this. So, but I don't know when the fuck Janice comes back, if she ever comes back. She was just gone.
We get a new human every week.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it was pretty okay. Like, it was weird Kirk. I don't know. The Klingons were just basically like, they're just a ward. Like people, like that's just what they do, is just travel around and fuck stuff up. So I find it hard to believe that the Federation or just anybody else hasn't banded together to just completely wipe them out by now. Just to be like, hey, these guys obviously all they do is just destroy things and enslave people. Like, do we really need to keep them around? But maybe their empire is just so huge that they avoid a war for the good of both sides. But I don't know. I'm not gonna read too much into it. Yeah.
Well, you could also look at the Federation was also fighting the Romulans for quite a long time also.
Right.
So there might be multiple races out there that just like to conquer.
Right. God, what if the Klingons and the Romulans got together then?
Ooh, I see. I wouldn't mind seeing a team up between two races that just conquer planets come together to try to take on the Federation. Like, hey, we can't take them out, and you're having trouble taking them out, so let's band together.
Right, but I guarantee you it would end with like them eventually fighting each other because they both think that they're better than the other one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, they should have Khan leading both empires.
Oh God. Yeah, and his race of super people.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, that's it for me on this one. Do you have anything else you wanted to get or want to talk about?
Nope. I think I'm good.
Okay, well, the next episode is going to be Season 1, Episode 27, The Alternative Factor, and since we don't have Paul with us at the end here, I don't have anything to read for that. I don't have the episode description, so I'll find out what it is when I watch it. But as always, Twitter at WWST_podcast, Gmail, WWSTpod@gmail.com, and we are where we find your favorite podcasts. So, yeah, thanks everybody for listening to this one, and hopefully we'll get Paul back for the next one. We'll have to get his sudden technical issue worked out, and that's going to be it for me.
Later.